This season, Stranded is headed to the Galapagos, an island chain filled with unique creatures that have adapted to these isolated seas. It's a perfect place for a game of deception. Welcome to Stranded 45. The Galapagos, survival of the fittest.
Let me pull it up. Yes. Okay. Are we ready?
I think so.
Ballin'. All right. 32 days, 19 people, 3 co-hosts, and 1 podcast. Welcome back to the Stranded Podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Danny, and joining me today are 2 other co-hosts of Stranded. 3-time player, Joaquin, most recently from Stranded and Victory.
I think I played 4 times, unfortunately, but here we are.
All right. And then also joining us, 2-time player, 1-time Stranded player, Loveita from Stranded for Victory.
And if we're going to be super accurate, I played 3 times because of Isolated All-Stars.
Oh, I forgot that season happened.
We just got pinged about it in the main server.
Oh my god.
Well, I did.
Well, to be fair, that season was my comeback from my 5150, so.
Yeah, we had such a chance to sound cool to start off, and all we do is sound like huge fucking nerds. So, good job, team. All right, let's actually just get started. All right, sweet. So this will be the first one of the actual season. It's been, I'd say, overall, pretty chaotic to start, even if there haven't been any, like, chaos boots yet. Everyone is just insane.
Yeah, this is a pretty rabid cast. They're all online all the time. So much so, that people who are logging on for a normal number of hours per day are being labeled inactive already. Yeah, I mean, it's always fun when new players take to the game really well, but these people are going above and beyond.
And there's also, I don't know, it'll come up at some point, I'm sure, too. A lot of these people played, like, Discord orgs, and they just talk about it nonstop during the game and how much they like certain things better and are comparing it. And I'm like, just shut up and enjoy what you got, you little Gen Alpha piece of shit. So
Whoever could you be talking about?
I can't wait to get there.
There are multiple. So, but anyway, we can get started. We've got like a full week to cover, which is only like 3 boots. But a decent amount has happened in that time frame. But we can start off with kind of the opening weekend, and what was happening on each of the tribes, and then who some of the standout players and alliances are. So I guess we can start with alphabetically first the Baltra tribe, or the Balls tribe, which is whatever I say in my head at the time.
I thought it was spelled with 2 L's for like a full 24 hours.
It's really a shame that there was like no Galapagos turtle like with a testicular name that I could have made the idol, but it'll have to deal with something about their tribe name. But in any case, this tribe, it feels like, at least compared to the other tribe, they're at least in the beginning a bit more kumbaya and just more overplay is kind of the vibe here.
Yeah, I think the vibe that I get from Baltra is that, they're sticking to basically like the Survivor 101 playbook of make a big alliance, pull in your people, but we're all one big happy tribe and we're just going to kick one person out to be the boot each time and be like, well, this is for tribe unity. This is for us to go all the way together, but we still love everybody. And it's a really kind of a rancid vibe, at least from my perspective, because the way they're going about it, it's so like everybody's up on their high horse and coming up with reasons why this person is terrible, why this person has to go. And I don't know, it makes me really root against them for some reason. I'm the biggest Baltra hater in the chat, so I'm excited to talk about them a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, And part of it too, I think, is a lot of times early game, we see all these people making individual connections, and Baltra really has leaned into their tribe IM chat, just like hundreds of messages, their tribe camp, like dozens of threads. It's a little ridiculous between the cat mascot and the tribe pets and the skinny dipping and whatever else they're doing. But basically, it seems that if you're not participating in those, you are not part of the Cool Kids Club.
Wow, who would have thought they could have bonded as a group without
Oh,
guarding?
God.
But yeah, I mean, like the main thing, at least the first weekend, I forget the name of it because there's too many alliance names on this season. But it's whatever. I think Cass started it, right? Where it's like basically everyone on the tribe except David, Jatia, and Jeffra are all in the same alliance, and their plan is basically to just boot those three until a swap, at least in the beginning.
Yeah, and one thing to note about this big group alliance is that originally Cass tried to start it in the PM system, and then they learned pretty quickly that when you send a PM on the Stranded forums, you can only add 5 recipients. So she had left out Sarah, Tony, and I forget who the third is. Was it Tasha, Loveita? She had left off 3 people, essentially, that weren't going to be included in the PM, which caused some drama.
I think it was just Sarah and Tony because she could send it to 5 people, and then she was the 6th,
Okay.
and then they were the 7th and 8th who got left out. But what's funny about that is that it made it really clear to everybody that she did not enter the people into the chat in alphabetical order because Tasha was in there.
Because Tasha was in it. Yeah.
So they're like, oh, Cass likes Tasha.
Yeah, like Joaquin said, this big group of 8 has kind of been the dominant alliance on Baltra. And I think the thing that's been really frustrating for the viewers, and for me specifically, has been listening to the players talk about the people that they're booting and talking about how, they really liked Jeffra. They were bonding with Jeffra. She was somebody that they, were really getting to know and liked on a personal level. But because they had committed to this 8-person alliance on day 2, they were all afraid to go against the grain. They didn't want to, upset the power structure out of fear of then becoming a target, of messing up the tribe dynamic. And at least from my perspective, I always find in these games that, in the early days, it's all about just finding the people you like the most. It's really not about the big alliance and staying tribe strong. It's about finding the people you want to play with. And I just think that, watching new players come in and try to do the numbers game this early, talking about final 8 already, it's a little odd to me. And it's making me struggle to root for it.
Yeah, it's been happening basically since the beginning. I mean, like you saw, I mean, we'll lead up. I've been to tribal council in a few minutes here, but like that when even on David as a first boot, like there were several people. Like was it Alexis was bonding well with David? There was Cliff was. They're like it wasn't anybody that was just they didn't have like a clear boot, and nobody stood up for the actual people that they liked. And I get if it's like, oh, you're the only holdout for this person, just like giving in on the first boat or whatever. But basically, no one's standing up.
Yeah,
for
it's
anything.
become just very easy consensus. Let's not rock anything. We've got to put on a united front to the other group. It's going to backfire in all of their faces, and I'm excited for that. But for now, it's a little frustrating, and it would continue to be even more frustrating if they were going to have a couple more boots there. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think a fun thing to talk about when we're talking about Baltra is the topic of inactivity, which is kind of what their metric is for who was involved in the alliance. And they labeled Jeffra inactive the first couple days. David was inactive because his work schedule didn't allow him to be on during the 8 p.m. time slot. Jatia has been inactive because she's on Australian time. But the thing that they're forgetting is that on night 1, Jeremiah logged in and talked to everybody, but then immediately went on a 2-day camping trip where he only logged in for maybe 10 minutes a day to talk to people. But because he had gotten in with Alexis almost immediately, he wasn't labeled inactive. So it's been interesting to watch how that label has kind of been pushed onto people selectively based on who they want out strategically. But then they talk about it as if it's some faux pas that the person had made, when really they're using it, as the person they bonded with, at least the person that they don't think they can work with.
I mean, at least in Jeremiah's defense, I think he's possibly, at least in the opening weekend, probably the most likable person on that tribe. So that's probably, I mean, even if though Alexis was more active, everyone was talking about how much they loved him, and there were multiple people thinking that he was their favorite person after the first day. So I do see why
Yeah, to
that kind of
Jeremiah's credit, he
sticks.
did a really great job of getting in with people very quickly because he knew he was going to be gone, and made that very clear to everybody. Whereas with the others, since they were kind of slower to show up, everybody had just kind of written them off at that point and weren't really willing to give them a chance, which makes it really hard to start bonding with people when they're already icing you out. And then they blame it on you.
Yeah. I guess getting into, we already started naming some people. I mean, I don't want to do like a rundown of like every single person on this tribe and where they stand and everything because it's going to take fucking forever and it's kind of boring. But like, if we wanted to talk about like who are, if you think about like if you had the 2 or 3 or 4 people you had to remember from this tribe, I think probably the first one that definitely comes to mind is Alexis. Um, and well, first of all, like her complete essays of confessionals I was catching up, even after the first couple of days. I had some like crazy work shit going on, and she was just the first person whose confessional I was starting to read, and I was just like, holy shit, dude, I'm getting bogged down. Um, but she is kind of like the most active, the most overplay, but simultaneously decently social out of all of them. And so there's like lots of little groups emerging throughout all of this. But she is just kind of like mega personality, safe, at least for the time being,
Yeah,
omnipresent.
Alexis, Jeremiah, and Sarah, I would say, are really the three big, like, core runners of the tribe right now. But Alexis is the insane one of the three. And I mean that in a good way, because I'm going to call her fucking crazy a couple of times here, and I want to preface that it is not a insult. But she is just like those confessionals are stream of conscious, rambling, nonsensical, contradictory. It's so hard to read them, but there's a lot there. I'm sorry you've started with those. But she's going to flame out as we keep going, as she's hit the ground so hard, and it's going to be fun to see how that goes on. But I think for now she's going to stick tight with like that Jeremiah, Sarah kind of group, and they keep her a little more level-headed.
Yeah, like you said, that is the
Yeah.
core of the tribe: Alexis, Jeremiah, Sarah. I do want to talk about Sarah since she hasn't really come up much, but she's kind of like, I would say, the ringleader, in the sense of she's the calm presence on the tribe. She's the grounding person. We'll get to, a little bit of the chaos, but she's the one that everybody goes to. And when she puts her foot down and says something's not going to happen, people listen to her. And she's not like Alexis and Jeremiah, who are gaming a million miles per minute. She has a good grasp of where she is in the tribe, and she has a good grasp of where everybody else is as well. And then when we kind of talk about the outsiders, I feel like Sarah is the one that they all go to. She's the one that's playing the best from that position of being able to talk to the people outside of that core alliance, which is a mistake on their part because she's the one who's not going to break away. But she's the one that they feel they can talk to.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get to this in like the winner pick section. The thing, I don't know, I had to like circle through on my mind is that like playing some like whatever other games recently, you think like, oh, these overplaying people, it's going to catch up to them so fast. But then you have, on newbie seasons, they really just like you forget how easy it is. Like if you're just like halfway active, how far you can go on that. So I do think all of them are kind of going to make it far. Um, but yeah, I'd say not of those three, maybe the most noteworthy person to mention is probably Jatia in terms of like how often she's come up, just because she's been like and I think as Loveita said, like such an unrootable tribe generally, like the clear underdog to root for. And part of that is definitely like, I hate bringing in like outside ID or whatever into it. Is part of it is that it's Firestorm, who's somebody that like a lot of us have played with before. Um, but at the same time, like no one is giving her a fair shake, and she's coming in. She won an immunity when I don't know if she absolutely needed it, but it was her, David, that was going first. Then comes in, gets saved by the research station twist, and is just being like the underdog everybody wants to root for.
Yeah, as an unapologetic Jatia stan this season, I agree. I think she's kind of the focal point of that tribe, and where everybody in the lurker server is kind of like putting their rooting interests when we're talking about Baltra. And I think, like you said, it's she came in a little bit late because she's on a different time zone, so she wasn't immediately there and around at the same time as everybody else. So she was immediately given the inactive or not around label from everybody. And then as we go through, she's shown herself to be good in challenges. And like you said, it's somebody who has gaming experience. So Jatia has been able to sense like, hey, something's up here. Like I'm on the outs. I'm able to tell who else is on the outs. How the fuck am I going to survive this? And so she's been trying. And what's been really frustrating as a viewer is the way that everybody in the tribe talks about her and blames things on her as a way to kind of like keep the target there. One of the big pieces of drama for Baltra was a tribe chat called Skinny Dipping that called out Alexis, Cass, and Cliff, I believe.
Yes.
And it was made by another person on the tribe. But the immediate response from Alexis and from other major players was to blame Jatia. Jatia did it. Jatia must have done it because it showed up while I was asleep and she's on a different time zone. Um, and so, just as somebody who naturally roots for the underdog and somebody who likes Firestorm outside of Stranded, I've just really been interested in this journey, and I'm really rooting for them to make it through this tribe and find footing somewhere else.
And I'm not even sure there's anything else Jatia could be doing because, she's showing them her challenge prowess and she comes in and she starts talking strategy, but I guess the thing she's missing are that social game aspect of it. And none of the tribe, or there's a couple of people, Tasha seems to be listening a little bit, but most of the tribe is just unwilling to even start that connection with her at this point because they're like, oh, well, she's dangerous. She knows challenges. She knows she's on the outs. We just need to get rid of her, and we're not even going to give her that chance. So I think she really needs to make it through to a swap situation. But if she does that, I think she'll get in a great spot. Or I hope she does.
Oh, I mean, yeah. We'll get to research station and all that shit, but like someone who's so openly willing to flip and been demonized on the bottom, you are just opening yourself up to a flip in the swap. And the person who's flipping is never the person that's voted out. So, praying for that. Kind of going into the first weekend boot. So we have the first tribal council, which was basically just it was they were deciding between those three outsiders, and then forgive me, I forget why Jeffra wasn't included as one of the names in the beginning. Was it just because Alexis
She
liked
had
her?
come back from her little weekend trip, which she was on with her boyfriend. And because of that, she was able to just kind of talk socially. And so she kind of did the opposite of what Jatia did, where Jatia went in really strategically, Jeffra went in really socially. And they're like, oh, she's really cool. Keep her around longer and see if we can work anything with this.
Yeah, so it ended up being between David and Jatia for the boot. Um, we have an individual immunity challenge that Jatia beats Jeffra by seconds. Very, very close. I forget what the final tally was. It was just like assembling a puzzle and posting it, like the challenge we do first, literally every season.
It was 7
Um,
seconds. I just checked.
So that close. So Jatia gets her. I don't know who was going to go. I wasn't paying close enough to Arrow Chat to know that night if it was swinging one way or the other beforehand. But at that point, the other option gets removed, and David goes home pretty unanimously. Stinks for David because he's more active than like other first boots we've had in Stranded and has like a halfway decent personality, but because of his job, was just like not as terminally online as some of these other people and just kind of shut out.
Yeah, I really liked David. His sense of humor really meshes with mine, and I'm sad that we only got one round of confessionals. You know, anyone who references Malaysian Airlines 370 in their confessional opening weekend is going to be a favorite for me. So,
Yeah, so Baltra, they end up losing the second immunity challenge as well, which is just we're kind of easing them in, and also to make swap numbers, spoilers work out kind of nice. Kind of an easy first week in terms of alternating, not just doing everything in one night. The second immunity challenge, they go in, lose, and are headed back, and it ultimately ends up being Jeffra going home.
And that we
yeah,
might
I
need
mean,
to.
Jeffra.
Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say Jeffra kind of got screwed
Yeah.
there by the research station twist, which is kind of like our version of Exile Island this season. As the winners, Tortuga was able to pick somebody from Baltra to be immune from tribal council. And just because Jatia had been posting funny gifs of herself in the challenge thread, Kenzie goes ahead and saves Jatia, which means that there's only one person left on the tribe who isn't in the core eight. And unfortunately, that's Jeffra. And the unfortunate thing is the majority of the tribe seemed to really like Jeffra as a person, so much so that they were working on setting her up as a side piece to use later in the game. And then unfortunately, as they're going through the scramble, Jatia starts to campaign for Jeffra, and people get spooked that Jeffra and Jatia are together. And then they shut down the flip that they were working to get somebody like Cass or Tony, who maybe isn't as integrated into the tribe. And it solidified Baltra against Jeffra.
Yeah, you have to wonder if had Jeffra been the one to start pushing other names and bringing up potential vote options to these people she was talking to, things could have gone a little bit differently. But I think the fact that it was Jatia who immediately hears Jeffra's name and says, "Oh no, I won't do that," hurt Jeffra's chances even more, unfortunately, which is kind of that weird situation you can get into sometimes in these games where having an ally stick up for you can do more harm than it can do good.
Yeah, I will push back, though, that I don't think it would change much if Jeffra had started it. I think the minute Jatia is on board to keep her, people like Alexis and Sarah were going to be against whatever vote they wanted, which is unfortunate. And I've said this in my blog on the website. I think it really is a rookie mistake on the parts of Alexis and Jeremiah and a few of these people who were really vibing with Jeffra to let her go in a position like that when there are people in their 8-person alliance that they openly say they're not that close with. So it's one of those things they'll learn over time as they play more, but it was really unfortunate, and to lose Jeffra there really hurt.
Especially as they're talking in that whole tribal council about how they want to keep nice, active people around to keep a positive energy and attitude towards the tribe, almost implying that Jeffra wasn't that.
Well, and then I was on a little bit of like a mean streak during that tribal council. There are a couple points where they're saying we're voting for people that we get along with. I'm like, well, everybody here is saying they get along with Jeffra, and they're like, well, we're voting for challenge strength. I'm like, well, didn't everybody say Jeffra is one of the better people at challenges? Like, you trying to poke holes in their logic of the reasons they're giving was one of my favorite parts of being a host for that tribal council.
Yeah, they refused to recognize those holes. A couple of them they were saying losing is no longer an option. We must keep the tribe strong. Also, we're going to keep around the people we like better, even if they're not as good at challenges. And it's okay, which is it?
Right. But that's Baltra. I think as we head into our next immunity challenge here tonight, all eyes are kind of on whether or not Jatia is going to make it through. If they can win this challenge, I think that's best case scenario. So Jatia can make it to a swap. If they lose, it's going to be another situation where the other tribe will be picking somebody to go to the research station. And there's a lot of talk going around the tribe about what do we do if they pick Jatia to go again, which I personally would love for them to do. I think that would be hilarious, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think if that were to happen, the big names on there would be Cass or Tony, probably. And just to quickly mention, too, since the last podcast, our Tony is a replacement from the one we did in the preseason cast assessment. I don't know if we wanted to talk about that at all.
I didn't do the new Tony's interview, so I have nothing to contribute there.
But our new Tony is no longer our Latvian king, but is a bit more of a lower key player. He's been really fine and, kind of making jokes about the spy shack, but much more of a kind of casual, funny Tony instead of a rah-rah, control the tribe Tony.
This is a Crazy James. Hello, everyone. I'm jumping to the podcast. I have one thought on Baltra before you all move on. I think it's really interesting when you have these big tribes and you have this big alliance form, and then you have this tension where it's like, a lot of the people really like people outside the alliance more, but they sort of formed this alliance, and it's like, we got a lot of new players here, and it's like they don't want to be the one to kind of push back against what the momentum of the alliance is. And I think that tension is really interesting. And, that's kind of what, in my mind, dooms Jeff right here, because, you have this 8-person-ish group, like, from their perspective, like, why rock the boat? Like, we can just ride this out a little bit. Maybe we'll then swap, in a week or whatever, which it seems like is going to happen. I think that's an interesting place that these players find themselves in, is, how much you want to position yourself for the future with people that you might have better allies, or do you just play it safe? So that's it. That's all I have.
Back to your hole, Crazy James. But yes, sweet, amazing transition time. Dear Maria, count me out. We're going over to Tortuga. Yes, I've been holding on to that one since this afternoon when I thought of it. Thank you. Music League will be proud of me for that. But yeah, we'll head into Tortuga, which is definitely batshit insane, but much more likable, other than maybe one person. But
yeah, I think the best way to describe Tortuga is that they are just like rabidly social, to the point where every single person, there's maybe like 2 or 3 that aren't connected to each other in some way. If you were to try and make one of those alliance charts of who's aligned with who, with every iteration of an alliance that's been made on this tribe, it would basically just be a circle with every person's name connected. They're insane in the best way.
Yeah, love Tortuga. I mean, they had a really, really easy first boot in the fact that Maria did not show up after the first night. So they just kind of have had all of this time since to figure out who they like and what their dynamics are. They did not take an approach of, oh, here are the, X number of people who have been here and haven't been here. People who weren't around as much the first night, like Hunter and Jem, are slowly making their inroads, and they're being accepted to varying degrees by different players. And I think that it's just a lot more of a fluid tribe dynamic. Even to the point where people who had number ones on like day 1 are now on day 5 saying, oh, should I not trust them anymore? Are they going to turn on me? And it's almost the opposite issue of Baltra.
Yeah, I think just to talk about the first boot in Maria, we took a risk here casting Mother Sue, who was the person behind Maria, and she was an older woman in her 60s, and I really think she thought she was in for something different, because she logged in that first night and sent a couple messages, and it was very clear she didn't know what was happening. But it was a bummer to lose her, because she's somebody who had like live gaming experience with, like Susie said, I think it was like a Zoom org or something like that, where things are kind of more talking and social based, where you're just logging in and talking to people. But I was really bummed that she didn't take to the site as well as other people.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, I mean, a 22-person cast, we went this big, largely. You always want like a little bit of a buffer, especially in a newbie season, to be able to get out some inactives first. But really, she was the only one. Everyone else has been around in some capacity, which has been big credit to everyone who was much more involved in casting than I was. I think I was in like 2 interviews. So shout out to all of y'all for getting a pretty active cast. Um, but yeah, I mean, in terms of like having to pick standouts from this group, I feel like from the first couple of days, I mean, positively speaking, I feel like the names that stood out to me were like Tevin, Venus, Kenzie. Um, but I mean, again, this is fluid, and you could like throw some other
Mariah,
people
for
in there
sure.
too. And then Mariah, yeah, Mariah was the next one out of my mouth.
Yeah, I would say that those four, Tevin, Mariah, Venus, and Kenzie, are definitely the social center of Tortuga. I don't think that there's an alliance that gets mentioned that doesn't include at least one of them. Um, and between them, they cover relationships to every other person in the tribe. Um, of that group, I think I've been the most surprised by Kenzie. She's kind of been the standout player on that tribe for me. I think that she has the best reads. I think that her relationships are the strongest. Like Loveita said, I think there's a little bit of stir craziness on Tortuga where they're starting to question their closest relationships. I never see people question whether or not they have Kenzie. And then with her going to the research station and being the first one to kind of make a reach over to somebody on the other tribe in a sign of good faith, I think that she really has stood out to me as playing the best over there.
I'll agree with that.
Yeah, I just want, this is again Crazy James with another crazy thought. No, but going off the idea of them being stir crazy, I think I've noticed that the most in Mariah and maybe Tevin's confessionals. And I think, I think it's a few things. I mean, those are both new players who have not really done the org thing before, so they're kind of, you know, and they haven't really been to a tribal council, right? Because their only tribal council was voting off Maria, who was an inactive. So they just don't know what to expect, and so they're like thinking they're just spinning in circles about how like they don't even know what it would look like if someone was lying to them in an org, right? Because they haven't seen that yet. They don't know what it looks like to be blindsided in an org because they haven't seen that yet. So I think there's this like they're still kind of like virgins here. They don't know what getting effed in an org is like, one might say. So I think once they go to a tribal council, or maybe even once there's a swap, I think that they'll kind of get past that and be pretty strong players. So I do think that they, I've been very impressed with both Mariah and
Yeah,
Tevin.
and 2 points on that. First, you can say "get fucked" on the podcast. You don't have to say "get effed."
All right, yes.
And the other point is, yeah, all Kenzie, Mariah, and Tevin are new players. They've never played a game before.
Yeah, I was going to throw out like of all the top players we had mentioned between the two tribes, only Jeremiah identifies as male. Everyone else is female or NB, which I think is kind of cool.
Yay, diversity.
Yes, Stranded, you can't cancel us. Uh, so I mean, I don't think we really need to talk about the Maria vote. She didn't show up. Everybody unanimously voted towards her. I think looking forward to if Tortuga were to lose this challenge, who are some of the names you think might be on the chopping block?
I think the biggest one is Jem. I feel like she is probably the least active person on that tribe, which is just to say that she's not online all the time. And, when we gave them a day off yesterday, she actually kind of took the day off because they didn't have anything to do, which might have been a mistake given the people around her. But the big question is there are rumblings of a blind side of Q.
Yes, there is an alliance of Ben, Kenzie, Mariah, and Tevin, and they have been talking about trying to pull in people like Hunter to blindside Q. So we'll see. We'll see if that comes. My guess is, though, that if they were to go to a tribal, probably they keep to their easier vote, just in case they don't want to rock things too much. But there's definitely a large possibility they could get antsy and throw out Q.
I think also if they knew that a swap was coming, they might hold on to him because he would be such an obvious target and shield for them. But they don't know, so they might not want to live with the panic that he causes for another 5 rounds if that's what they think they're going to have to do.
Yeah, and we haven't really talked about Q yet on this tribe, and he's really a central figure, but not in like a game sense. He's a central figure in kind of like the we can't look away, what is this guy doing kind of way. He was the first person sent to the research station from Tortuga over opening weekend. He got the tribe to send him unanimously in our opening challenge, where half the tribe didn't even submit a list because they just knew we were giving all the words to Q. And then he's been really interested in making HTML code on the Stranded forums. And when he showed up at the research station, decided to do this big code to ask like a bunch of questions about the advantages that were there. And I think that was the first moment when the hosts were kind of like, what did we get ourselves into? And ever since, he's kind of just been all over the place, both strategically with everybody, but also just talking about all of the shit he's trying to do coding on the boards. And I think all the people on the tribe are kind of being like, dude, what are you doing? Like, we don't care. Why is this what you're focusing on? And it's been like a really interesting case study to kind of look in at somebody who's just playing a completely different game than everybody else.
Q has very little social awareness of how he comes off to people, and I think he would probably admit that as well. But yeah, with that like research station between Q and Tasha was the other first person to get picked for the research station. Q ended up with a knowledge is power. Tasha ended up with a safety without power. Just to kind of recap that really quickly. But Tasha was really excited to get to know somebody on the other tribe and talk to them and bond with them. And Q was like, what is your list? What words were there? Who lied to us? Okay, what's your tribe like? Okay, good, talk, bye. And he goes back to his confessional and says, I got everything I wanted out of that research station trip. And Tasha goes back to her confessional and says, Q is crazy and a robot and I learned nothing.
Yeah, he's definitely been like, I don't even want to say polarizing because I feel like it's pretty unanimously like he's the love to hate guy. And actually it was the main reason we had to post an announcement, or Danny posted an announcement about not including outside sources because he was so obsessed with being able to play Gardic on the forums that he was like risking exposing. I don't know anything about this game, but I'm assuming it's like a Google Doc situation where you could like maybe see someone's name on the top. And we're like, it's an immersive experience. Just like fucking stay on the boards. How hard is it? Like, so we'll see. I don't know. I want him to stick around, even despite all the hate, because I need the big personalities around like that. So I would prefer if he wasn't blindsided, but I would understand if people reacted positively to it.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing too is like, we do get people like you who come from like the Discord org community and some other, org groups where like the social dynamic is you hang out on Discord and you play Flash games, and that's how you get to know people. Stranded is much more, talk on the boards, make new threads. The Tortuga tribe is playing this or that, and they have been keeping the thread going for 5 days. It's stuff like that, and then just getting to kind of hang out with people. It's not taking it elsewhere. Like Joaquin said, an immersive experience, really committing to the alias rules and not asking people to leave the board or rebel against the hosts when they tell you not to do it,
Yeah, and to the point about the fans loving to hate him, we're still doing our first lurker opinion survey, but right now Q is 20th out of 22.
Placing just behind Maria, I'm sure.
Maria and David are the only ones below.
Oh my God. Well, in any case, I think time to wrap that up. I think the only two things we got left. Let's talk about the research station a little bit. I think people started to allude to it in previous talks. It's basically our version of Exile Island. Get people used to the twist format and the whole Galapagos theme and all that fun stuff. Um, the first research station was Q, and then Tasha was the other one. I believe basically, aside from getting to know each other, the two advantages they basically had to decide who got which advantage. The one was a knowledge is power, and the other was a safety without power. I think ultimately it was Tasha took safety without power, and Q got knowledge is power. How do you feel about
They
those
were
choices?
both,
I think it fits with the people.
yeah, they were
Uh,
both really happy with them. They chose pretty quickly. It was exactly what each of them wanted.
Yeah, and I think after going through Q's HTML coded list of all of the reasons why each thing would be good or not, it makes sense that he would want something where he could steal a different advantage. He was really turned off by the idea that safety without power was only good for the person holding it. He kept asking if he could play it on somebody else and force them out of tribal council. And as soon as we said that that wasn't how the power worked, he was no longer interested.
But unfortunately for Q, coming back to your tribe round one and telling everybody you have a knowledge is power does not make them want to tell you anything about any other potential advantages they might ever get.
Yeah, I think that's a good segue into the second research station. The way that it works for the rest of the pre-swap is that the winning tribe picks one of their own to go to the research station, and then they choose somebody from the losing tribe to be safe from the vote. And then when they get to the research station, the one person's prize is immunity from the vote, and the person who brought them over gets an extra vote as, we say a sign of good faith or something, I think, in the write up. But, for saving the other person, they get an extra vote, and then it's just a place for them to talk. And then because Q has talked about his knowledge is power, Kenzie, who went to the research station in round two, is now coming up with ways to kind of move her extra vote around to her allies so that if by chance Q did want to take a shot, he wouldn't be able to steal it from the right person.
Kenzie also wanted to lie to everyone in her tribe about the research station and not tell any of them so that she got an extra vote. Unfortunately, this was halted a little bit by Jatia saying, oh, whoops, I already told Sarah on my tribe. But I think Kenzie's story to the rest of her tribe was something like she had to do a challenge to get her extra vote. So it's going to be interesting to see who the next person on her tribe to go is and whether or not they catch on to the fact that she might have misled a little bit.
Well, they don't get to see the old research stations, so
No, but they will get the exact same, like, oh, you just get an extra vote for nothing, and you get an immunity. So it's going to be the same copy paste instructions.
Guess she's just going to have to lie her ass off and be like, I don't know why mine was different.
Yeah.
well, we'll see how that goes. All right, let's kind of wrap things up here. I think did a good overview of tribes in the first week. We talked a little bit about standout people on each tribe. I'm curious who's everybody's winner pick right now.
If you follow my blog on the forums, you know that I am currently picking Kenzie. She's been the standout for me of the opening week. I think that she's in a solid spot strategically and socially on her tribe. And I've just really been impressed with the way that she's taken to this game. I really think that she is going to go the distance.
I agree with that take. I think Kenzie, out of everybody, has probably played the best in the cast this first week. If you were going to force me to pick somebody different, I would probably pick Sarah at this moment because I think she's got that level-headed energy to make it through. I just think we would be less excited watching her win at this point.
Yeah, this is always so hard after the first week because I mean, from the last couple times we've done the people who are amazing at the beginning of the game, it doesn't always translate, especially like post swap or anything like that. Although it is a newbie game, so people the strong players tend to at least make it a decent amount far. I'm probably going to go Tevin right now, just because I think with at least right now, I think he's in that. There's so many people on Tortuga who are contenders, and I feel like he's chilled out a little bit since the first episode. And I'll kind of take someone who's not at the forefront. Although I could see them winning. Kenzie's just a bit more top of mind for me. The Sarah pick was interesting to me because my follow up question to this was going to be, can anyone currently on Baltro win the game? Because I think there's a pretty strong argument you could say no.
If anyone can, I think it would be Sarah at this point.
Sarah would be my top choice from over there. I also think Jeremiah,
Yeah.
if he can release himself from the shackles of Alexis's craziness, maybe he could do well.
I would agree. I totally would have said Jeremiah as well. I think just like the national socialness. And then I think one other person who has not come up a ton who I find super likable and people like him, he just hasn't been as central, has been Cliff. I could totally see a world where if this season has like a Tanzania-esque end where like it's like, like the Mario Party meme where like everybody like skirts off the island and then it's just Luigi standing at the end. Like he could be that kind of person to me just because he's likable. But he's compared to some of the other people we've brought up, he's not as in the weeds as they are.
Yeah, another person on Baltra I don't think we even brought up once, which might be a good thing for his game. But Bryce. Bryce could do really well in swap situations and kind of build a game because he's got great relationships with like Jeremiah and Sarah, but isn't, part seen as that power trio. Like Jatia did not throw him under the bus to Kenzie, for example. She talked shit about basically everybody on her tribe except Bryce and Tony.
Yeah, I was gonna potentially bring up Bryce, and now I feel more not stupid for doing so because I could see Bryce really fitting in well with the Tortuga Key Alliance in a swap situation. I think that people like Tevin and Mariah, these sort of like very like liberal leaning, open minded people. I think that like Bryce would vibe with them, and I could see them bonding together.
Yeah, I think I said it in the pregame podcast, but Bryce gives me the same vibe as Noel from Bhutan. Somebody who's coming in from like previous org experience, is just a fun personality, knows the game, but isn't going to be like trying to take the reins early. And I could definitely see him kind of being one of the last ones standing at the end. I would be very curious to see the path where he wins, but I definitely see a long run for him.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us for the week one. We're hoping to do this again a bit more frequently now that the game has started, just so that way these don't take almost an hour each time. So I don't know. We'll probably try to check in Sunday or Monday or something. But in any case, talk to everyone later. Enjoy the rest of it.
Thank you for listening, and we will see you in the Galapagos.